So, some pretty big news for StarCraft 2. There has been another patch made. I think the game was in a not terrible state. You know, with what we saw at Gamers 8, there's been some exciting games, GSL as well. I think there are some issues that have needed to be addressed. By the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. I'll be making lots more YouTube content about StarCraft 2, about future RTS games in general. Anyways, Protoss, they haven't been doing as well lately. That's undeniable. There have been some issues in the game with, well, I guess I'll just go down the patch notes and we'll kind of talk about everything. So, to start this off, with Terran, massive changes here to the Cyclone. And so it seems like they want to make this unit more viable after the first couple minutes of the game. The Cyclone's kind of a funny unit because it's sort of like the Swiss Army knife unit. The Cyclone's had a lot of cool functions early on, but it basically gets obsolete if you get further along. I know we've seen Cure and Gumiho do some cool stuff with pushes, but it does seem like they're intending to have this have a bigger, more impactful role later on in the game. And so trying to, instead of just take out some kind of cool utility that you have early on, that I think's played an interesting role, especially in TVT, they're gonna mix that up. So the cost has been reduced just slightly here. Tech lab requirement removed. That's pretty huge because obviously the fact that, you know, you just have to commit to a tech lab. Terran have to hard commit to certain techs in order to get stuff out. So this will create a little bit more flexibility. Health has been reduced, armor has been reduced, but the supply as well. So they're trying to make this an overall more accessible unit. Auto attack range increased from 5 to 6. That's pretty interesting. That's pretty strong. And it looks like they want to have, lock-on now uses the Cyclone's auto attack damage, no longer ignores armor. Auto attack damage speed now 11, plus 2 versus armored, plus 1 damage per upgrade. Okay, I can't really make a lot from this. The lock-on cooldown removed. That's interesting. Lockdown no longer has a delay before the first shot. So this is a lot of stuff that's going to change how people have to control this. Multiple Cyclones will now auto-cast lock-on to the same target. That was, I think, one of the things that was making it a little bit harder to use otherwise. And now there's a new speed, move speed reduced, by the way. So it's a little bit more of a slower unit. It was always kind of like this, I don't know, it's like this unit that would skate around and you could kite better with a Cyclone than anything else. I think these are good changes. There's also a new upgrade, so you can increase its moving speed with the upgrade, and that's research at the factory's tech lab. It seems like they're taking a little bit of a note from StarCraft 1 with the Goliath. I see some of you guys saying that in the chat. We'll see if it does fill more of that role in the matchup when we get to actual competitive play. These are all ideas, but we gotta wait until the actual games pan out and see what the application of it is. But massive changes. So I think this is going to have a huge impact in the late and mid game now. I'm curious what the early game is going to look like because the Cyclone does so much. There's so many tactics and strategies that you can use in the early game with the Cyclone. The changes, the fact that it might come out a little bit faster. It's going to be interesting. So this is exciting. Cyclone. Go snipe damage reduced from 170 to 130, but plus 40 versus psionic. EMP radius reduced to 1.75 to 1.5. Keep in mind there's actually some size changes we're going to be discussing with some of the units here. We're getting, as Artosis has called them, to be more manlet units. It's like when they reduced the Ultralisk size. We're having some of the other units get shrunk down. But the EMP reduction, okay, whatever. Widowmine drilling claws, excuse me, now also make the Widowmine Umbro twice as fast. Okay. Targeting line is now more visible. Okay, I think that's fair. Probably a quality of life change there. A medevac speed upgrade reduced with the reactor increases medevac's energy regeneration rate by 100%. That's pretty interesting. We do see medevacs get drained out from energy in a lot of these games, especially if you sacrifice making medevacs early on, so you're kind of low on them. So that's a welcome one. Minimap radius increased. What does that mean? Minimap radius increased from 0.75 to 1? Does that mean that the blip on the minimap? Is that what they're talking about? That must be. That must be it. Was it too small before? I have no idea about that one. Okay, Raven. Yeah, just easier to see. Okay, thank you, chat. Interference matrix now requires research. This is going to affect TVT a lot in the early game. I don't think that's necessarily bad. It does seem like Terran have like a lot of stuff they can do that I frankly like seeing early on. I don't know, this is going to change a lot of the early game TVT. I'm curious to see how Terran's going to function now with some of the changes on the Cyclone and the Raven. I guess you're still going to get auto turrets for free, so there's always that. But I guess the truth is it's maybe worth it to make the Terran work a little bit to get all the tools that the Raven has. Chat says on bigger maps like altitude dots on the minimap appear smaller, so that compensates a bit. That's a very good point. That's a very good point. The dot size is relative to the map size. Lurker. Adaptive Talon's move speed bonus removed. Interesting. Adaptive Talon's cost reduced from 150 to 100. It says as some of the main counters to the Lurker are getting nuked, reducing the speed of repositioning Lurkers in the late game. Okay. I don't have any strong opinions on that. It does seem like they're trying to make Infestors more viable. I think especially with the Infestor starting energy being increased, you can pop into the game and actually just start doing things. Fungal growth, cast range reduced. The fungal growth damage has been reduced as well. But the pathogen glands upgrade has been removed. Since the infested Terran ability was removed like a million years ago, the Infestor has no utility until reaching 75. That's true. Fungal damage and cast range is reduced to prevent Infestors from killing Marines with 2 consecutive fungals. Okay, this all makes sense. And as a trade-off to the EMP radius nerf in the TVZ late game. So they're going to try to have a little bit more Infestor versus Ghost in the late game. Idea-wise, we'll see if that's actually what pans out. I guess the reality is a lot of times we don't see the Infestors come out until it's time to neural parasite stuff in super late games. Air armor upgrade reduced from 150, 225, 225, 300, 300 to 100, 175, 250. I actually forgot the air armor upgrade was even that much for Zerg. That's kind of funny. Yeah, I think this is a good change. I agree with you, Gauntlet Wizard. I don't see any problems here. Viper, consume damage reduced from 200 to 150. So they're making the Viper a little bit better. Maybe the concern was that it reduces the attention required for gathering Viper energy. I guess some players who are not at the top levels will end up killing their own buildings. Broodlord move speed increase. So they've been messing with the Broodlord for a long time. It does seem like we do end up with a... And I don't know, some people probably like this. I think a lot of others don't, but we end up with those death ball comps in the late game. This has always been a thing with Zerg, where we have like Infestors and Broodlords underneath each other. Do we want that to be slow? Do we want it to be action-packed? I don't know. So they're going to increase the move speed. Broodly movement speed reduced. Okay, so they're kind of switching that. So the Broodlord is going to be a little bit faster. The Broodlean, maybe not as punishing to a retreating army. Broodlean health reduced as well, so that I guess if you have a small number of Broodlords, you can't kind of just squeeze out damage over time. If there's enough there to sustain, it can obliterate it. Broodlean attack speed reduced as well. Okay, so they've kind of mobilized the Broodlord, but they've weakened the Broodlean. Overlord deceleration speed increased. Generate creep ability reduced. Yeah, I guess the Overlord is actually one of the most sluggish units in the game in a lot of ways, even with its like startup and stop speed. And so they're trying to allow more active usage of Queen drops. Okay. Not a bad idea. I never would have thought about that. Honestly, the Overlord's just not a unit I think about ever. Transport upgraded. Move speed increased. Move speed with the Carapace increased. Ultralisk. Cost has been reduced just slightly. Burrow unburrow time reduced. You know, it's easy to forget that Ultras can even burrow and unburrow. We don't see it very often. So they're just going to make that a little bit quicker. Lurkers and Broodlords are generally favored over Ultralisk in the late game, as Ultralisk have poor cost efficiency over time, should make them more used throughout long games while not generally reducing the initial investment. Well, I'll be interested in seeing if we see more burrow and unburrow, but, you know, when you have an opportunity to have a unit that has an ability like that, I guess it's a welcome change. Hydralisk speed plus range upgrades combined. Okay, that's interesting. Increase the speed at which Hydras come online in the mid-game for more quickly responding to enemy air switches as mutas. So this seems to be a ZVZ fix. The Baneling, this is a big one. Bonus damage upgrade reduced from 2, +2 light to 2 versus all. The centrifugal hooks. You know, guys, when we read these balance patch updates. Have you guys ever noticed I never use these terms? I can barely read these words, and they never are self-explanatory for what the upgrades are. Anyways, the big takeaway from all this is that they will no longer one-shot probes or drones with +2 attack. That's really big. I guess you get +3 attack, you can still kill stuff in one hit, but I mean, a major way that Zergs would play the game. Keep in mind, a lot of StarCraft 2 is hinged on things happening so fast that if you're not able to, like, react in a second, you will lose the fight. I mean, the reality is, this is going to be a bit of a punish for Zerg, but maybe this can make the game a little bit more interesting. We have a lot of games where you can have a fight going on, but the Zerg has, 5 or 6 Banelings to the side of the map they can run in, and maybe you're only on 3 bases as a Terran or a Protoss, and they just hit everything, and sometimes that's all it takes. So I guess they're fine with one-shotting workers in a late game, but maybe not making this such a punish in the mid-game. Okay, the Forge. Shield upgrade has been reduced. That's fine. Shield upgrade's always been a little bit crazy expensive. I don't think we're ever going to see shield upgrades made first, but I think it's fine to do that. The air armor upgrade has been reduced. I actually forgot how expensive some of these air upgrades are in the game. It's not an expense that crosses my mind that often. Okay, yeah, I mean, I welcome this. It seems like they're reducing everything for that all around. Warp Prism, minimap radius increased. So they're doing the same thing for the medevac that they're doing for the Warp Prism. Disruptor supply has been increased. Model scale reduced by 9. So, yeah, their ideas are, it's currently hard to tell which disruptors have a purification Nova available when multiple are clumped together as the models intersect with each other. That is true. They can overlap on each other like little Venn diagrams. The goal of the supply cost increase is to reduce the potential of mass disruptor armies while still allowing Protoss players to use disruptor as a strong mid-game and late-game tool. Prismatic alignment on the Void Ray, move speed with flux veins increased. So the Void Ray has always been a funny unit. It occasionally has a role in the game and never like a very big one. And then occasionally it'll be a very strong role and they'll nerf it out. Void Rays, I mean, I almost forget they're in the game. In the last 2 seasons of GSL, we never really saw very much of it. It allows for players to actively micro Void Rays in the late game. Yeah, that's just a quality of life change. Tempest, acceleration, deceleration increased from 2.1 to 4.2. Radius model scale reduced by 10%. So we're getting more little manlet units. Improve the feeling of actively microing Tempest as a slow acceleration makes them feel slow to respond when not moving already. That is very true. I guess they might be the most sluggish unit in the game. Now this is a big one. Mothership, well, we got a lot. This is almost as big as the Cyclone change. The cost has been cut. The supply has been cut. The build time has been reduced. The speed has been increased. These are all buffs for the Mothership. The lateral acceleration has been increased. Lateral acceleration is how fast the unit changes direction while moving. Increasing this will make the Mothership no longer lag behind the other army units. Okay, I'm glad they explained what that was. Health and shields, though, have been reduced. The radius model skill size has been reduced by 10%. No longer has energy. Spells are now cooldown based and require no energy to cast. Interesting. Okay, I kind of like that, actually. Recall now has an 89-second cooldown. Recall radius has been reduced slightly. Time Warp now is a 60-second cooldown, so every minute you can use Time Warp. That's right, chat, so they can't be EMP'd. Time Warp radius has been slightly reduced. Time Warp cast delay has been reduced. Cloak Field is no longer passive. Oh! They saved that one for the end. It is now activated, and it is an activated ability which lasts for 20 seconds with a 50-second cooldown. Yeah, that's big. I'm really trying to think of how this is going to affect the game. The Mothership was basically an idea taken from the Arbiter in StarCraft 1, and it seems like they wanted to make like a super Arbiter. This has always been this idea that's been tinkered with RTS, is having some kind of like a giga unit, like a unit that you can make one of that you build up to. And the thing about the Mothership is that it kind of turned out to be not even a unit you had to get. There's been a couple ideas that they've tried to implement in StarCraft 2 that I think, and even in StarCraft 1. Another example of this is the nuke. Like when I cast in front of an audience, and it's an audience that doesn't, like I'm at BlizzCon, and there's just, maybe some WoW fans in the audience. There's StarCraft 2 fans, StarCraft 1 fans, obviously, but maybe some people that play more Diablo, more World of Warcraft. They'll come in and watch, and I'll see when a nuke is about to be fired. that group of the audience goes nuts. They're like, oh my God, they're nuking each other. When in reality, the nuke is probably the least hyped thing that ever happens in StarCraft 1 or 2. It almost never lands. If you're good, you can figure out where you're getting nuked and leave. And so it's kind of failed in the hype it was trying to create. And honestly, the interesting things you could do with it. Occasionally we'll have like a nuke that lands and hits everything, and that's exciting. But the fact that it almost never happens, not that great. I'll see the same reaction in an audience when the mothership is made. Where the mothership comes out and you hear gasps. You know, a fight happens, it's immediately, you know, it's just killed by corruptors and it's made, it's rendered useless. So I think they're trying to make this more of an active unit. The early mothership was made as an idea to try to, I don't know, have this big epic build-up unit, and they made it slow so that it wouldn't be, you know, as strong as I think they were afraid it would be. And then the result is that it's kind of, you know, it was kind of a whatever unit. Like, you know, honestly, I don't even think about the mothership until I see one made. But it looks like you can micro it and do cool tricks. Keep in mind, when they made the mothership core, which I think a lot of people were unhappy about, they were trying to once again figure out a way to have the kind of build-up of this unit that you start out with, and then you eventually turn it into like a crazy epic unit. But again, I think they failed in what they set out to do with that. So look, I think this is exciting. This is cool. And I like the fact that it has cooldown abilities. Yeah, I mean, I think this is this should make for a pretty interesting change in the game. And I think it's something that could help Protoss. Sentry Guardian Shield duration increased slightly. Okay, so this allows the Guardian Shield to be precast before engaging Terran armies. A lot of this seems to be centered around the role of the Ghost. The Oracle, the Stasis reward, sight range increased from 4 to 7. Okay. All right, that's actually a cool change. You can use stasis wards to basically spot on the map. Immortal Barrier will now also block the first instance of damage, which triggers the barrier. I'm excited for this. I'm excited for GSL. That's not too far away, by the way, everybody. Although I don't think the dates have been announced, but just imagine that around when ASL wraps up, we'll be right into GSL. Little aside here. So, first of all, to be clear, this is not a Blizzard patch, believe it or not. As someone who's on the inside, I could tell you that there's like a council of pro gamers, as well as I think some of the people that run tournament stuff at ESL that are basically coming up with these patch changes. So, you know, I gotta say, you know, even though Blizzard is basically dead right now and plays no role in our scene and is frankly collapsing on itself with Overwatch League, you know, they're paying teams like $6 million to not play their esport. Well, we're still, you know, GSL is still around, even though it's been reduced in size. I'm very grateful that we have a scene that can sustain itself without Blizzard and can keep basically taking care of the game and keeping the game alive, even if we don't have that backup. That's kind of nice to see. Has Overwatch League ever made a profit? No, I mean, this was the big concern with Overwatch League. Maybe I can make another video about this at some point in time. But I mean, they had no idea how big the scale they were trying to hit was. There was no way they were ever going to get those numbers. I think one of the most important things with esports is to always have sustainability so that you can keep doing it, you know, tournaments and events over and over. And they seem to want to chase a lot of, you know, money from teams and big buy-ins, you know, without being able to live up to the hype of the game and the viewership and all that. So anyways, I'm grateful that we've got a scene out here that can kind of guide the game and continue to try to put the game in a better and better place. And I welcome these changes. I would like to see Protoss do a little bit better. You know, we had periods where SOS was winning world championships. We had players like Rain who were able to play very conservative Protoss games and still win. Stats as well is another good example. And look, maybe that's due to the, you know, who's playing now. You know, it's always hard to know, right? But it does seem like in the last, and I don't know the exact timeline here, but I want to say the last 4 years, 4.5 to 5 years, Protoss just don't seem to be doing as well. I hope that these changes do allow some, first of all, just overall interesting changes in the early game. I think especially with the Cyclone and all this other stuff, we're going to have to get used to a different feel for the game. But I do hope we see some cool new ideas with Protoss here because, you know, Zerg had been crushing it for a while. It seems like Terran's really on top for the time being. Look, metas are always shifting. Last year, or the last 2 ASLs, we had 4 Terrans in the finals. That's unusual, and that was when Flash wasn't playing. So I think that threw a lot of people off, but, you know, it seems like, you know, Terran has been pretty strong in StarCraft 1, but at least in that game, it's so old, we've had periods where each race has been dominant. StarCraft 2 is inherently in a different spot. It is a quote-unquote living game in that we can keep patching it and trying to fix it and improve it, where I think the StarCraft 1 scene is settled on. We're going to leave the game exactly like this because we don't want to mess with it and change what it already seems to be pretty good. So I'm excited for this. Again, if you like content like this, if you're interested at all in the work that I do, whether it's casting or streaming, I do stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/TastelessTV. Come hang out. Also, go to tastelessthreads.com. You can check out my merch there. I've got a lot of cool stuff. And in the future, I mean, we've got Zero Space, we've got Stormgate, we've got a lot of exciting RTS games, and I will certainly be making content around that as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in a future video, I hope. Bye-bye.